The day the sky turned white. The colony world of Haven was quiet that morning. The sun rose slowly over wide green fields. Wind moved through tall crops that had taken years to grow in the once barren soil. White houses stood in neat rows near the river. Children walked to school along dusty paths. Farmers checked water systems and soil sensors. Cargo drones moved above the town like small birds. Haven was not rich. It was not famous. It was only important because it was alive. The colony had been built 20 years ago. Earth had sent families, workers, and engineers to make a new beginning. They had worked hard. They had buried their dead. They had planted forests where there had once been rock and sand. They believed the worst days of humanity were behind them. No one expected the sky to change. At 9:17 local time, the orbital sensor station detected a distortion above the planet's northern hemisphere. The station's computers first marked it as a sensor error. Then the distortion grew wider. Space itself seemed to twist. A technician named Daniel stared at the screen. "That's not natural," he whispered. The distortion split open. Dark shapes emerged from the tear in space.
1.
Then 10. Then hundreds. Ships. They were massive. Black.
Sharp.
They blocked the stars behind them. Their hulls reflected no sunlight. They formed a silent wall across the sky. The station tried to send a greeting signal. No reply came. The governor of Haven was informed within minutes. She ordered a standard first contact message transmitted on all known frequencies. "This is the human colony Haven. We welcome peaceful contact." Silence answered. Then the alien fleet moved. Without warning, beams of white light fell from orbit. The first strike hit the northern farming district. The ground turned into glass. Soil, crops, water systems, gone in seconds. The shockwave rolled across the plains, flattening buildings. Screams filled emergency channels. In the capital city, people looked up as the sky turned bright. It was not sunlight. It was fire from above. Orbital defense cannons activated. Haven had only a few, meant to stop pirates or small threats. They fired blue streaks of energy toward the fleet. The shots never reached their targets. Invisible shields flared around the alien ships. The defense fire faded like sparks in rain. Another wave of white beams struck. The power grid failed. Hospitals switched to backup generators. Sirens wailed across the city. Traffic filled the streets as families tried to reach shelters built deep underground. Daniel at the sensor station kept watching the screens even as the station shook. "They're not targeting military zones," he said. "They're targeting population centers." The realization felt heavy. This was not invasion. It was removal. Emergency bunkers sealed as people rushed inside. Doors closed on fathers running with children in their arms. Mothers cried for sons who had been outside the city. The alien ships adjusted formation. A larger vessel moved to the center of orbit. Its surface opened, revealing a glowing core brighter than anything before. Energy built around it. In the command center below, the governor gripped the edge of her desk. "Transmit distress to Earth," she ordered. Priority 1. All channels. Continuous broadcast. Technicians worked through shaking hands. Long-range transmitters powered up. A narrow beam shot toward the distant stars. "Message sent," someone said. The large alien weapon fired. A column of white fire dropped from the sky and struck the ocean near the eastern coast. Water exploded upward in steam. A shockwave circled the planet. Cities near the shoreline vanished under rising waves. The atmosphere began to change. Ash and smoke filled the air. Haven's small defense fleet tried to launch from a nearby moon base. 3 human frigates rose into space, engines burning bright. They lasted less than a minute. Thin red lines flashed from the alien ships. The frigates broke apart in silence. On the surface, shelters trembled as more strikes came. Forests burned. Rivers boiled. Mountains cracked under repeated impact. Daniel watched the life sign monitors drop one by one. Northern District offline. Western settlements offline. Capital grid failing. He forced himself to record everything. The fleet formations. The weapon signatures. The energy readings. If Earth received the signal, they would need data. The governor returned to the command floor as the building shook again. How long? She asked. Daniel checked the models. Less than an hour, he said quietly. The alien ships never sent a message. No demand. No warning. No explanation. Only destruction. 38 minutes after the first ship appeared, the main cities of Haven were gone. Fires covered the continents. The sky turned dark under rising smoke. Lightning formed inside the ash clouds. The governor stood before the last working camera and spoke directly to the long-range transmitter. This is Haven Colony. We are under total orbital attack. Unknown alien fleet. No communication. No negotiation. The ceiling cracked above her. They didn't even speak, she finished. The command center vanished in white light. In orbit, the alien fleet paused as if confirming the result. Life signs across the planet fell to near zero. The ships shifted formation once more. Then, as silently as they had arrived, they opened another tear in space. One by one, the dark vessels disappeared. Hours later, Haven burned alone beneath a blackened sky. Far away, across the cold distance between stars, a single damaged signal continued to travel toward Earth. The silence after. The signal reached Earth 11 days later. It arrived broken. Deep Space Listening Station 7 caught the first fragments. At first, the operators thought it was background noise. Static. Radiation from a solar flare. But the pattern repeated. A technician slowed the transmission and cleaned the signal. Words began to form. This is Haven Colony, under total orbital attack. The room fell silent. More fragments followed. Energy readings. Fleet numbers. Weapons signatures. Then the final line, damaged but clear enough. They didn't even speak. The message ended in white noise. Within minutes, the data was sent to the United Earth Council. Emergency meetings were called. Military command centers activated secure channels. Civilian networks began to whisper about a lost connection with Haven. Official confirmation came 3 hours later. Haven was dark. Long-range telescopes turned toward the colony system. The images were slow to arrive, limited by distance. When the first clear visual feed appeared on the main screen in the council chamber, no one spoke. The planet was scarred. Large areas glowed red with fire. Thick clouds covered most of the surface. The oceans near the eastern coast were still boiling. No power signatures were detected. No traffic in orbit. No response to repeated signals. Haven was gone. The council chair stood slowly. Casualty estimate? A defense analyst answered, voice steady but tight. Population was 8 million, including off-world workers and moon-based personnel. Survival probability, less than 1%. The number hung in the air. 8 million. Not soldiers. Not rebels. Families. Farmers. Teachers. Children. The first question was simple. Who did this? The sensor data from Daniel's final recordings was analyzed by military AI systems. The fleet composition did not match any known pirate group. The energy signatures were advanced, far beyond anything humanity had encountered. Within hours, Earth's exploration probes were redirected toward Haven's system. Fast response drones were launched. 4 days later, the first probe arrived. Its footage streamed directly to Earth. The moon base was destroyed. Its surface blackened and cracked. Wreckage from the small defense fleet drifted in orbit. No escape pods. No emergency beacons. The probe descended toward Haven's atmosphere. Ash filled the sky. The one-screen planes were gray glass. Entire cities were flattened into smooth, shining scars. Heat storms moved across the continents. Life signs, none. The probe found the capital's location. It identified the remains of the government complex. Radiation levels were high. Structures had been erased down to their foundations. The AI confirmed it. Complete extermination. Back on Earth, public announcement systems went live. The chair of the United Earth Council addressed the planet. Haven Colony has been destroyed by an unknown alien force. There were no demands. No warnings. No communication. Across Earth, People watched in silence. Some cried. Some stared at the screen in disbelief. Many had family on Haven. Protests did not form. There was no confusion. There was only quiet. In military headquarters beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Fleet Command reviewed the alien fleet data. Sci's estimates were revised upward. The attacking force had numbered in the thousands. One officer spoke what others were thinking. This was not a raid. Another replied,
No.
This was a message. But what message? Further analysis began. Deep space tracking arrays searched for similar energy distortions. 3 faint traces were found near the edge of known space.
Old.
Months old. Humanity had missed them. The alien fleet had been scouting. 2 weeks after the destruction, a new development changed everything. An automated relay station far beyond Haven's system detected a signal. Not human. It was structured, mathematical, formal. Translated through AI models, it became clear. The message came from a larger political body calling itself the Alliance. It stated that humanity had been classified as a future destabilizing species. It claimed that preemptive action had been taken to reduce long-term galactic risk. It did not apologize. It did not threaten further attack. It simply stated that continued human expansion would result in additional corrective measures. The message ended. In the council chamber, no one spoke for several seconds. Then the defense minister said quietly, "They judged us." Another council member asked, "Based on what?" There was no answer. Military simulations began immediately. Human fleets, even at full mobilization, could not match the size of the alien force detected at Haven. But something else became clear. The alien fleet had left. They had not occupied the system. They had not built stations. They had not claimed territory. They had come only to destroy. Earth entered a state of emergency. Shipyards that had been idle for years powered up. Industrial zones received priority energy allocation. Civilian factories were offered contracts for military conversion. There were no public speeches about revenge. Only one statement was released. This was not war, the council declared. This was extermination. Days passed. Then weeks. Haven continued to burn in distant telescope images. On Earth, people returned to work. Children returned to school. But something had changed. Recruitment offices filled quietly. Engineering students shifted to defense programs. Old warship designs were pulled from secure archives. The silence after Haven was heavy. But it was not empty. Across Earth and its colonies, plans were being drawn. Not out of anger. Not out of panic. But out of cold understanding. If an enemy strikes without warning, then next time, there must not be a chance for them to strike at all. The Arsenal Doctrine. Earth did not shout. It did not make loud promises. It worked. 3 days after the Alliance message was decoded, the United Earth Council passed a law that had not been used in over a century. It was called Total Defense Activation. Every major industry shifted under government control. Civilian shipyards were converted to military use. Mining corporations were given new targets. Energy production doubled within weeks. No one protested. The memory of Haven was still fresh. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Fleet Command opened a sealed archive known as the Black Vault. Inside were old war plans from a time when humanity feared destroying itself. Designs too powerful. Strategies too extreme. One file was marked with a single word, Dreadnought. The design had never been built. It was too expensive, too large, too dangerous. Until now, the Dreadnought was not a patrol ship. It was not a cruiser. It was a mobile fortress. A single vessel larger than some cities. Thick armor. Layered shields. Long-range strike cannons able to hit targets across star systems. It had been created for one purpose: to end wars quickly. Fleet Admiral James stood before the council screen. "We cannot match the Alliance in numbers today," he said. "But we can change that." He tapped the display. A projection appeared. 1 Dreadnought. Then 10. Then hundreds. Then the number climbed higher. "We will not build a fleet," he continued. "We will build an answer." The council asked the question everyone was thinking. How many? James did not hesitate. 500,000. The room went still. It sounded impossible. The economic cost would be enormous. The material requirements beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. But the calculations had already been done. Asteroid belts in 3 systems contained enough raw metal. Gas giants could supply fuel. Automated factories powered by fusion reactors could run day and night without rest. The only limit was will. And will was not in short supply. The plan was named the Arsenal Doctrine. Its core idea was simple. If attacked without warning, respond with overwhelming finality. Construction began within a month. On Mars, old terraforming plants were converted into armor foundries. On Luna, ship hull sections were assembled in orbit. In the asteroid belt, mining drones tore through rock at record speed. Entire space stations were rebuilt as shipyards. The first Dreadnought keel was laid in silence. There was no ceremony. Workers in heavy suits welded massive steel frames together. Engineers checked weapon alignment systems. AI cores were installed deep within reinforced chambers. Each ship required thousands of workers and advanced machines. Most of the construction was automated, but human oversight remained. The ships were given numbers instead of names. Emotion was not part of the design. Training programs expanded across Earth and its colonies. Pilots trained in high-gravity simulators. Command officers studied alien fleet tactics from Haven's final data. New weapons were tested in deep space. Long-range particle cannons. Shield disruptors. Kinetic impact rounds the size of buildings. Each successful test moved production forward. Years passed. The public followed progress through controlled reports. They were told the fleet was growing. They were told humanity would not be caught unprepared again. Recruitment remained steady. Families who had lost loved ones on Haven did not demand revenge speeches. They asked for results. By the 3rd year, the first operational Dreadnought entered space trials. It was massive. Even veteran commanders stared when it moved past the shipyard. Its hull was dark gray, almost black. Layers of armor reflected distant starlight. Engines burned with steady blue fire. Weapon systems powered up during testing. The main spinal cannon fired once into empty space. Sensors recorded the energy wave traveling for millions of kilometers before fading. The message was clear. This was not a defensive ship. It was a statement. Production increased faster than expected. AI-managed assembly lines improved efficiency. Materials were recycled from outdated fleets. Civilian travel slowed as energy was redirected to warship construction. The Alliance watched. Their probes entered human space from time to time. They observed the expanding shipyards. They sent formal warnings. Humanity did not reply. 5 years after Haven, the fleet count passed 100,000. 10 years after Haven, it passed 300,000. The galaxy began to notice. Other species sent quiet messages asking about humanity's intentions. Trade slowed near human borders. Rumors spread across star systems. Humans were building something large, something final. On the 12th anniversary of Haven's destruction, Fleet Command released a single internal report. Dreadnought production status: 500,000 units complete. The ships were stationed across multiple systems, hidden behind asteroid fields and deep space defense platforms. They waited. Admiral James stood before a viewing window as lines of dreadnoughts held formation in silent rows. A younger officer asked him, "Do you think they will strike again?" James watched the fleet's lights flicker against the dark. "They believed we were a risk," he said calmly. "They tried to reduce that risk." He folded his hands behind his back. "Now we are something else." Far beyond human space, Alliance scouts reported the same numbers with rising concern. Humanity had not shouted. It had not threatened. It had built.
And it was ready.
The builders of vengeance. The fleet did not appear in one place. It grew everywhere. Across human space, lights burned all night in shipyards. Sparks flew in orbit around planets. Heavy machines moved without rest. The sound of metal being cut and shaped became the heartbeat of civilization. But the dreadnoughts were not built by machines alone. They were built by people. On Earth, factories that once made civilian cargo ships now forged armor plates thick as mountains. Workers stood on platforms high above glowing metal rivers. Robotic arms lifted sections the size of city blocks. Men and women signed long contracts without hesitation. Some had family on Haven. Some did not. It did not matter. In a small town near the coast of Africa, a teacher named Mark closed his classroom for the last time. He handed his students their final lesson files and boarded a transport to Luna. He was not a soldier. He became a systems technician. On Mars, a young engineer named Leo worked double shifts aligning shield generators. His older brother had lived on Haven. Leo never spoke about it. He simply worked. In the asteroid belt, mining crews drilled deeper than ever before. Entire rocks were hollowed out and turned into temporary shipyards. From far away, the asteroids looked like they were glowing from within. Even small colonies joined the effort. Farmers sent food shipments directly to shipyard stations. Doctors volunteered for long-term contracts in orbital medical units. Retired officers returned to train new crews. The government never forced anyone. They did not need to. The story of Haven had spread to every screen, every home. The last words of the governor were taught in schools. They didn't even speak. Those words became fuel. The project was no longer just military. It was personal. Fleet Command created rotation systems so workers would not collapse from exhaustion. AI monitored health levels. Still, many refused to take breaks. They wanted the fleet finished. As dreadnought numbers increased, design improvements followed. Early models were strong. Later ones were stronger. Armor layers became adaptive, able to shift density under impact. Shield grids overlapped with nearby ships, forming linked defense webs. Weapon charging time was reduced. Each ship was a lesson learned from Haven. Each flaw corrected. Training centers expanded across Earth and its colonies. Crews practiced formation movement in massive simulations. Pilots trained to operate in total silence, using only encrypted data signals. The fleet would move as one. That was the goal. 10 years into construction, something changed. A small Alliance probe entered the outer edge of human space. It did not hide. It scanned shipyards openly. Human patrol ships intercepted it. They did not fire. They escorted it to the border and sent it back. No message was transmitted. The Alliance now knew the scale of what humanity was building. Inside Alliance space, debates began. Some leaders believed humans would never dare to attack. Others warned that a species capable of building 500,000 dreadnoughts was not acting from fear. Back in human space, production did not slow. The 500,000th dreadnought was completed in a quiet ceremony in deep orbit near Saturn. There were no cheering crowds. Only workers standing on viewing decks as the final hull plates locked into place. The ship's engines activated with a low, steady hum. Admiral James addressed the workers through a simple broadcast. "You built this," he said. "Not for revenge. Not for anger. You built this so that no human world will ever burn again." He paused. "And so that those who burned one will understand the cost." The fleet began to gather. From hidden docks and distant systems, dreadnoughts moved toward assembly points. Long lines of massive ships crossed the darkness between stars. Their engines glowed blue against the black. When they formed up for the first time in full numbers, even hardened commanders felt a chill. 500,000 ships, each one capable of destroying a city in a single strike, together capable of breaking empires. Yet they did not move.
Not yet.
Humanity waited. They studied Alliance space. They mapped trade routes. They identified military hubs. They calculated response times. They were not rushing. Patience had become their greatest weapon. On Earth, children grew up seeing dreadnought silhouettes in the sky during training exercises. To them, it was normal. To the galaxy, it was terrifying. The builders returned home slowly as production lines reduced speed. Some went back to farms. Some to schools. Some remained in service. They had done their part. One evening, Leo stood on a balcony overlooking Mars' shipyard ring. Hundreds of completed dreadnoughts floated in orbit, silent and still. A friend beside him asked quietly, "Do you think they regret it?" Leo looked at the ships.
They will, he answered.
Far away, Alliance scouts reported increasing human fleet movements. For the first time since Haven, the word fear appeared in Alliance internal reports. Humanity had finished building. Now the galaxy waited to see what the Builders of Vengeance would do next. The warning ignored. The Alliance believed humans would stay behind their borders. They were wrong. 15 years after Haven burned, long-range human probes began to move deeper into Alliance space. They did not hide. They did not scan in secret. They traveled in straight lines, broadcasting standard identification codes. Alliance border stations detected them within hours. At first, the probes were ignored. Then more appeared. Dozens. Then hundreds. They mapped star systems. They recorded fleet movements. They measured defense platforms and shipyard outputs. The message was clear. Humanity was studying them. Inside the Alliance High Council chamber, tension grew. The chamber was massive, built in orbit around the Alliance capital world. Leaders from dozens of species gathered in shifting light. A senior defense leader spoke first. "The humans are expanding military intelligence operations." Another replied, "They are still within neutral zones." "They are preparing," the first leader insisted. "We should strike again. End it before they grow stronger." Murmurs filled the chamber. Not everyone agreed. Reports from spies and long-range observation had confirmed something alarming. The humans had completed construction of 500,000 Dreadnought-class vessels. The number had been checked and rechecked. 500,000. No single Alliance species possessed even half that number in heavy warships. A political leader stood slowly. "We attacked one of their colonies without warning," the leader said. "We called it risk reduction." Silence followed. "And now they build like this. Perhaps we miscalculated." The word miscalculated sounded weak in the vast chamber. Back in human space, Admiral James received daily updates on Alliance debates. Human intelligence networks had grown strong over the years. He studied the reports carefully. "They are divided," one analyst said. "That makes them unpredictable," James answered. A younger officer asked the question many were thinking. "Are we going to attack?" James did not answer immediately. Instead, he ordered something unexpected. A message was prepared. It was sent directly to the Alliance High Council on all major frequencies. The chamber fell silent when it arrived. The human transmission was simple. "No threats. No insults. This is the United Earth Council. We acknowledge your classification of humanity as a destabilizing species. We request formal dialogue under equal diplomatic standing. We will not accept inspection, limitation, or external control." The message ended. The Alliance leaders stared at the projection. One leader spoke sharply. "They request equal standing? After their rapid militarization?" Another replied, "After we destroyed their world." The debate grew louder. Some demanded rejection. Others warned that ignoring the message would push humans further. In the end, the Alliance chose arrogance. A response was drafted. "You may send representatives under Alliance supervision. Military expansion must cease immediately. Fleet numbers must be disclosed and reduced. Failure to comply will result in corrective action." The reply reached Earth within days. The Council read it in silence. Reduce the fleet. Submit to supervision. Corrective action. The same words used before Haven. Admiral James looked at the Council members. "They have learned nothing," he said quietly. The Council chair nodded once. "Then we will teach them." There was no public announcement. No dramatic speech. Orders moved through encrypted channels. Across multiple systems, Dreadnought engines powered up. Fuel lines detached. Docking clamps released. One by one, ships began to move. Not all at once. Not toward the capital. First, toward the border systems where Alliance fleets were strongest. The movement was slow and controlled. Human ships did not cross into Alliance territory. They gathered just outside. Alliance border commanders noticed the change immediately. Long-range sensors lit up with mass readings beyond anything recorded before. Rows upon rows of human dreadnoughts held position in deep space. They did not fire. They did not transmit threats. They simply waited. Alliance border fleets were ordered to full combat readiness. Defense platforms powered shields. Civilians in nearby systems began to worry. Inside the High Council chamber, panic rose for the first time. They are mobilizing. They would not dare. 500,000 ships, another leader whispered. Perhaps they would. A final message from Earth arrived. You struck without speaking. We offered dialogue. You answered with demands. We will now secure our future. Nothing more. On the human side of the border, Admiral James stood on the command deck of the lead dreadnought. He watched the tactical display fill with blue markers representing human ships. An officer approached him. All fleets in position, sir. James looked toward the projection of Alliance space. Hold formation, he said calmly. Await my command. Across the border, Alliance commanders watched in growing fear as human ships continued to arrive. The stars themselves seemed crowded. The lesson was forming. And this time, humanity would not wait to see the sky turn white. The launch. The border between human space and Alliance space had never felt so small. On one side, Alliance defense fleets held tight formation around their outer systems. Warships lined up in layered shields. Missile platforms locked targets. Fighter wings waited inside hangars. On the other side, human dreadnoughts filled the darkness. 500,000 ships. They stretched across millions of kilometers. From a distance, they looked like a second star field.
Cold. Silent.
Waiting. For 3 days, neither side moved. Alliance leaders argued inside their orbital council station. Some still believed the humans were bluffing. Others watched the growing fleet numbers and felt something deeper than doubt. They felt fear. On the bridge of the lead human dreadnought, Admiral James stood with his hands behind his back. The command deck was quiet. Screens glowed with tactical data. Fleet status indicators showed full readiness. An officer spoke softly. All units report green status. Weapons charged. Shield stable. James nodded once. Send final message. The transmission crossed the border in seconds. This is humanity's final notice. You destroyed Haven without warning. You rejected equal dialogue. Stand down your border fleets and accept full disarmament terms. This is your last chance. The message ended. No threats. No shouting. Just a choice. Inside the Alliance Council chamber, the message played again and again. Some leaders demanded surrender talks. Others refused. We are the dominant power, one leader argued. If we bend to them, every species will challenge us. Another leader answered, if we do not bend, we may not exist to lead. The debate lasted less than an hour. In the end, pride won. Alliance fleets were ordered to hold position and prepare for engagement. The response was transmitted. The Alliance will not submit to coercion. Withdraw immediately. On the human flagship, the reply appeared on screen. Admiral James did not react. He looked at the borderline on the tactical map. Fleet Command, he said calmly. Execute Phase 1. Across the vast human formation, engines flared brighter. Thousands of dreadnoughts moved forward in perfect coordination. Then tens of thousands. Then all of them. The border was crossed. Alliance sensors screamed warnings. Defense platforms opened fire first. Bright streams of plasma and missile swarms rushed toward the advancing human wall. The human fleet did not break formation. Frontline dreadnoughts activated overlapping shield grids. Blue energy walls connected ship to ship, forming a massive barrier. Missiles detonated against the shields in waves of fire. The shields held. Then the human fleet answered. Spinal cannons fired in sequence. Lines of white energy cut across space. Alliance warships in the front lines exploded under direct hits. Some vanished instantly. Others broke apart in burning fragments. The first battle lasted less than 20 minutes. Alliance Border Fleet 1 was destroyed. Survivors attempted retreat toward the inner system, but human fast response groups cut them off. Precision strikes disabled engines. Escape pods were allowed to launch. Human orders were clear. Destroy military targets. Spare civilians. Alliance commanders struggled to regroup. Reinforcement fleets jumped in from nearby systems. Hundreds of ships arrived into chaos. They found human dreadnoughts already in control of key positions. Space itself seemed crowded with human hulls. The second engagement was larger. Alliance heavy cruisers focused fire on a cluster of human ships. For the first time, a few dreadnoughts took visible damage. Armor plates cracked. Shield nodes overloaded. But behind them, more human ships moved forward. The damaged vessels rotated out of formation, replaced instantly. The line never broke. Alliance weapons began to fail under sustained pressure. Human targeting systems worked with cold precision. Every shot removed a threat. No wasted fire. Within 6 hours, the entire outer defense system collapsed. Alliance border stations transmitted emergency calls to the capital. Defense lines breached. Human fleet advancing in full strength. Inside the council chamber, silence replaced argument. The scale of the invasion was clear now. This was not a raid. This was not a show of force. It was systematic dismantling. Back on the flagship, Admiral James watched reports flow in. Outer ring secured, an officer said. Civilian traffic rerouted safely. Alliance fleet losses estimated at 70%. James gave a small nod. Proceed to Phase 2. Advance to secondary defense sectors. The fleet obeyed. Wave after wave of dreadnoughts pushed deeper into Alliance territory. Supply depots were targeted. Shipyards disabled. Communication relays destroyed. Still, human forces avoided civilian centers. They were not repeating haven. Alliance citizens across multiple systems looked up at their skies and saw distant flashes of battle. For the first time in generations, the Alliance was losing control of its own space. Within 24 hours of crossing the border, humanity had broken the strongest outer defenses of the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. 500,000 dreadnoughts moved forward like a storm that could not be stopped. And this time, the sky belonged to humanity. The first great collapse. The Alliance had believed its inner systems were untouchable. They were wrong. After the outer defense lines fell, human dreadnoughts did not slow down. They moved deeper into Alliance territory in organized waves. Each group had a clear target: military shipyards, fleet supply stations, weapon research hubs. The human fleet did not spread in chaos. It moved like a machine. Alliance High Command tried to gather its strongest remaining fleets near a key industrial system called Core Station 3. It was one of their largest military production centers. Thousands of warships were under construction there. Massive defense platforms surrounded the system's main star. If they could hold the system, they believed they could stop the human advance. Fleet after fleet jumped in to defend it. Over 100,000 Alliance ships formed a layered defense wall around the station. When human scouts detected the buildup, Admiral James studied the tactical map. "They are concentrating their strength," an officer said. "Good," James replied. "That makes it easier." He ordered 3 human fleet groups to converge on Core Station 3. More than 200,000 dreadnoughts changed course. When they arrived, space around the system looked like a storm of metal and fire. Alliance ships had filled every possible approach vector. Defense platforms rotated slowly, weapons glowing bright. Alliance commanders broadcast a message across all channels. "Human fleet, withdraw now. Further advance will result in total war." There was no reply. Instead, the human formations split into layers. Frontline dreadnoughts moved forward in a tight wall. Behind them, artillery-class ships adjusted long-range cannons. Support vessels linked shields across thousands of hulls. Then the firing began. Human spinal cannons released synchronized blasts. Energy waves crossed millions of kilometers in seconds. The first line of Alliance ships shattered under the impact. Some ships tried to counterfire, but their shots broke against a shield network. Alliance defense platforms responded with everything they had. Streams of plasma cut through space. Explosions lit up the dark like artificial suns. For the first time, human losses increased. Several dreadnoughts took direct hits from concentrated fire. One ship lost its main cannon. Another suffered a reactor breach and exploded in silence. But the line held. Human ships rotated positions again, always keeping fresh shields facing the heaviest fire. Alliance commanders realized something terrible. The humans were not fighting with emotion. They were fighting with calculation. Every movement was planned. Every sacrifice measured. After 2 hours of continuous combat, the first Alliance defensive ring collapsed. Human fast strike groups rushed through the opening. They targeted shipyards first. Massive construction frames were cut apart by precision fire. Half-built warships drifted powerless. Alliance reinforcements jumped into the system, but they arrived into disaster. Human forces had already established control points around key locations. The battle grew chaotic. Debris filled space. Escape pods launched in thousands. Emergency signals flooded communication networks. In the command center of Core Station 3, an Alliance admiral stared at the tactical display. Red markers showing destroyed ships covered half the screen. "We cannot hold," a subordinate said. The admiral hesitated. For decades, the Alliance had been the strongest force in the galaxy. They had enforced peace by power. They had destroyed Haven because they believed humanity would one day threaten that power. Now the threat was here. "Order retreat," the admiral said quietly. The command was sent. Remaining Alliance ships began emergency jumps out of the system. Human forces did not chase fleeing civilian transports. They did not target escape pods. They focused only on military ships. Within 6 hours, Core Station 3 was no longer under Alliance control. Human dreadnoughts surrounded the damaged station. Boarding teams secured military archives. Weapon stockpiles were disabled. A message was sent from Admiral James to all Alliance systems. Core Station 3 has fallen. Further resistance will result in additional losses. Stand down your fleets. Across Alliance space, fear spread quickly. Trade routes shut down. Civilian worlds activated planetary shields. Some smaller member species demanded immediate surrender talks. Inside the Alliance High Council chamber, arguments turned into shouting. "We underestimated them. We must defend the capital. We should have accepted their first offer, but it was too late for regret." Human fleets continued advancing in steady formation. System by system, military targets were neutralized. Supply chains were cut. Communication relays fell silent. The Alliance was not being destroyed all at once. It was being dismantled piece by piece. On the human flagship, an officer reviewed casualty reports. "Losses are within projected limits," he said. Admiral James nodded. "Maintain civilian protection protocols." "Yes, sir." James looked at the growing list of secured systems. "They burned one of our worlds," he said softly. "We are removing their ability to burn another." Far ahead, deeper in Alliance territory, the stars glowed with distant battle. The first great collapse had begun, and the Alliance finally understood that humanity had not come to warn. Humanity had come to end the threat forever. The Council in fear. The Alliance capital system had never known war. For centuries, it had been the center of power. Its planets were rich. Its cities were bright. Trade ships moved in endless lines between worlds. Massive defense rings surrounded the capital planet like shining halos. Now those halos were glowing red with emergency power. Reports arrived every hour. Core Station 3 had fallen. Outer defense sectors were lost. More than half of the Alliance military fleet had been destroyed or disabled. And the human dreadnoughts were still coming. Inside the High Council chamber, the atmosphere was no longer proud or calm. It was heavy with fear. Leaders spoke over each other. "They are only targeting military systems. For now. They have avoided civilian worlds. They have not reached the capital yet." A senior defense commander stood at the center of the chamber. "Our remaining fleets are regrouping here," he said, pointing to a projection of the capital system. "We can form one final defense line." One leader asked the question no one wanted to answer. "Can we win?" The commander did not respond immediately. Finally, he said, "Not in open battle." Silence fell. Across the galaxy, news channels and Alliance space showed images of destroyed fleets and drifting wreckage. Civilians watched in shock. Many had believed humans were reckless and emotional. Instead, they were controlled.
Precise. Terrifying.
On the edge of the capital system, early warning stations detected gravitational distortions. Human fleets were arriving. Thousands at first, then tens of thousands, then so many that the starfield seemed to move. 500,000 dreadnoughts spread out in wide arcs beyond the system's outer defense ring. They did not rush forward. They formed a complete circle around the system. The capital was surrounded. On the human flagship, Admiral James watched the tactical display fill with blue markers. The capital world glowed in the center of the projection. An officer spoke quietly. "All civilian traffic identified and marked. Military targets confirmed." James nodded. "Open channel to the High Council." The connection was established. For the first time since Haven, the Alliance leaders saw a human face in direct communication. James stood in full uniform, calm and steady. "You classified us as a future threat," he began. "You destroyed Haven without warning. You rejected equal dialogue." He paused. "You are now surrounded. This is your final opportunity." The council chamber on the other side was silent. James continued. "We demand complete demilitarization of the Alliance military fleet. All heavy warship production will cease. Strategic weapon systems will be dismantled under supervision. A formal admission of attempted extermination will be recorded." One council member finally spoke. "And if we refuse?" James did not raise his voice. "Then we will remove your ability to threaten us." The transmission ended. Inside the Alliance chamber, panic broke out again. Some leaders demanded surrender immediately. Others still resisted. "If we surrender," one argued, "we lose our power forever." "If we do not surrender," another replied, "we may lose everything." Outside, human dreadnoughts began targeting defense platforms at the edge of the system. Precise shots disabled shield nodes and weapon arrays without striking the capital planet itself. It was a demonstration, a reminder. Alliance fleets formed their final defensive line between the human armada and the capital world. The largest battle of the war began. Alliance ships launched everything they had left. Plasma beams crossed space. Missiles filled the dark. Fighter wings swarmed in desperate waves. Human dreadnoughts answered with controlled volleys. Shield networks absorbed heavy strikes. Counterfire removed Alliance ships one by one. The battle lasted hours. Alliance ships fought harder than before. They knew there would be no retreat this time. But numbers and coordination favored humanity. Human ships rotated positions flawlessly. Damaged vessels pulled back while fresh units advanced. Artillery dreadnoughts targeted command ships first, breaking coordination. One by one, Alliance capital defenders fell. Finally, only a thin line of damaged ships remained between humanity and the capital planet. Inside the High Council chamber, leaders watched the final defense line collapse on live feed. No one argued anymore. The vote was called. Surrender terms. Accepted. A transmission was sent to the human fleet. The Alliance agrees to your conditions. We request immediate ceasefire. On the human flagship, the message appeared on screen. Admiral James studied it for a long moment. Then he gave the order. Ceasefire. Hold position. Across space, human weapons powered down. The capital system remained intact. The capital planet was untouched. But the Alliance fleet was broken. The galaxy watched in silence. Humanity had not burned cities. They had not destroyed civilian worlds. They had done something far worse to a military empire. They had taken away its power. And they had done it without shouting, without rage, only with force. The siege of the core worlds. The human fleet did not stop at the capital system. Once the Alliance had surrendered, Admiral James did not celebrate. He only studied the next set of objectives. Core worlds, the systems that powered the Alliance economy and military, remained intact. Factories, research stations, and resource hubs continued to operate under Alliance control. If humanity left them unchecked, the same threat could rise again in decades. The fleet moved in silence. Each dreadnought glowed faintly against the dark void of space. 500,000 ships, stretching across millions of kilometers, advanced like an unstoppable wave. The first target was Gallion Prime, a heavily fortified industrial world. Orbital defenses were strong. Shields were layered. Turrets bristled along every orbital platform, and dozens of warships patrolled the system. Alliance leaders believed they had learned from the loss of Core Station 3. Human scouts arrived first. They mapped every weapon system and relay station, feeding data into the main command network. The Dreadnoughts followed in precise formation. They moved slowly but methodically, never leaving gaps. Every ship's sensors fed into an integrated system. Each cannon, shield, and engine was calculated down to the second. The Alliance fleet responded aggressively. They launched swarms of fighters, fired long-range plasma barrages, and activated missile storms. The human formation adjusted instantly. Shields strengthened in the sectors under heaviest fire. Energy grids rerouted power from non-essential systems. Ships rotated positions as damage occurred, keeping the strongest armor facing the attacks. For 6 hours, Gallion Prime's defenses resisted. Energy beams lit the sky. Explosions rained across the orbital platforms. The sound of battle echoed faintly through human communication channels, though no human voice rose above calm. Then the human offensive struck. Spinal cannons fired in synchronized volleys. Each shot destroyed multiple targets simultaneously. Missile platforms were disabled. Orbital turrets melted under concentrated energy blasts. Warships attempting evasive maneuvers were hit before they could escape. Within half a day, Gallion Prime's orbital defenses collapsed. The human fleet established control zones around the planet. Boarding drones secured military installations while civilian areas remained untouched. The same approach continued in the following weeks. System after system fell. Human forces avoided civilian worlds whenever possible.
Cities were spared.
Factories that did not produce weapons were left intact. Only military and industrial assets connected to the Alliance's war machine were neutralized. Inside the Alliance High Council, panic spread. Governors of core systems sent urgent messages pleading for protection, but there was little the Alliance could do. Their fleets had been broken. Communications were disrupted. Supply lines cut. Human dreadnoughts were everywhere at once, striking with precision the Alliance could neither predict nor resist. One Alliance leader finally spoke aloud in frustration. "They are not punishing our people. They are targeting only what matters." Another replied, "That is worse than burning a city. They are dismantling our power. Without it, we cannot recover." And that was true. Human forces had learned from Haven. They had seen the cost of attack without warning. They were not acting in rage, they were acting in calculation. Every strike, every destroyed ship, and every disabled facility was a lesson to the Alliance. Never repeat the same mistake. Human command maintained discipline across hundreds of thousands of ships. Supply drones kept the fleet fueled. Repair crews patched minor damages. Ships rotated positions to prevent overexposure. There was no panic, no wasted fire. Every attack counted. By the end of the third week, most of the outer core worlds had been secured. Human forces established control points in orbit. Alliance military leaders were captured or neutralized. Critical war factories were dismantled. Strategic materials were removed or destroyed. And still, the civilian populations remained unharmed. On one human flagship, Admiral James observed the situation silently. Officers reported progress. Reports showed losses on both sides, though human losses were far lower. Damaged dreadnoughts were reinforced and returned to formation within hours. James finally spoke, his voice calm. "We show strength. We show restraint. We teach a lesson that will last generations. They will never risk burning another human world." An officer looked at the growing network of human-controlled systems. Do you think they understand yet? James stared at the map. Core worlds, industrial hubs, supply lines, all under human control. Alliance fleets scattered or destroyed. Civilian life preserved. They will, he said softly. They will remember Haven forever. Far across the galaxy, intelligence reports from other species began to arrive. They watched the human fleet advance without unnecessary destruction. They began to whisper. Humanity was not a race to be toyed with. The siege of the core worlds would be remembered as the moment the galaxy learned that humans could endure loss, build unstoppable strength, and strike with precision. Not for anger, not for hatred, but for survival. And the lesson of Haven burned brighter than ever. The breaking point. The capital system of the Alliance trembled under the sight of the human fleet. From orbit, billions of lights sparkled across space, not from cities, but from the immense hulls of 500,000 dreadnoughts. Each one was a fortress capable of crushing planets, yet they held position in formation, waiting. Silence stretched across the void. Even the stars seemed dim against the human armada. Inside the High Council chamber, panic had turned into chaos. Leaders shouted at each other over the failing communication networks. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others still clung to pride, insisting they could repel humanity, though they had already lost most of their outer and core systems. A senior Alliance commander finally admitted the truth. We cannot stop them. Our fleets are scattered. Our defenses are broken. Our war factories are disabled. They are stronger than we imagined. They will reach the capital within hours. The words hung heavy in the chamber. No one spoke after them. Meanwhile, the human fleet did not advance blindly. Admiral James observed the system through multiple sensor arrays. They had studied every orbital path, every shield generator, every military station. Every strike had been calculated in advance. Every weapon fired would have maximum impact with minimal waste. James turned to his officer. Prepare final deployment. Target stations, command ships, and orbital defense platforms. Civilian areas remain untouched. Yes, sir, the officer replied. Within the hour, human dreadnoughts moved into precise positions around the capital system. Lines of firepower overlapped, forming a web that no Alliance ship could penetrate. The outer defense platforms glowed as human targeting beams locked on. Energy weapons charged silently, waiting for the command. The Alliance fleet scrambled to respond. Fighters and cruisers launched in desperate waves, trying to break the encirclement. Massive plasma bursts lit the void. Missile volleys streaked through space. Yet human shields absorbed nearly every strike. Any damaged ship rotated out, replaced instantly by another dreadnought moving into formation. Hours passed. Alliance commanders realized the impossible truth. They were outmatched, not by emotion, but by planning and scale. Their strategies failed before the humans had even fired. Finally, Admiral James gave the order. Begin operation. Take no civilians. Neutralize every military asset. Spinal cannons fired. Lines of pure energy cut through the void, targeting platforms, battleships, and weapon arrays. Explosions bloomed like artificial suns. Alliance cruisers disintegrated mid-flight. Turrets melted. Shield nodes overloaded and failed one by one. The attack was surgical. Each blast removed only what threatened humanity. Civilian colonies were ignored entirely. Factories not linked to the war effort remained untouched. Alliance commanders watched in horror as their fleets collapsed. One by one, the most powerful ships in the galaxy were destroyed. Coordination broke. Panic spread from ship to ship. Transmission networks went dark. On the command deck of the human flagship, reports streamed in. Over 70% of the remaining Alliance military assets in the capital system had been disabled or destroyed. Human losses were minimal. Damaged dreadnoughts rotated back into formation. Repair drones worked instantly to restore minor systems. James looked at the map. Red markers, representing destroyed or disabled Alliance ships, covered the screen. Blue markers, the human fleet, extended across the system like a moving wall. "Send the message," he said. A single transmission crossed every remaining Alliance channel. It was calm, deliberate. "You attacked Haven without warning. You rejected our requests for dialogue. Your fleets are destroyed. Cease all military operations. Accept disarmament under supervision. Admit your attempt to exterminate humanity." Silence followed. For the first time, Alliance leaders had no words. Pride and arrogance had led them here, and now they had no choice. After a tense hour, one voice finally spoke. We accept." The human fleet paused. Weapons powered down. Shields lowered. Dreadnoughts remained in formation, but no fire was aimed at the capital planet. Admiral James spoke once, quietly, to his bridge officers. "Hold position. The system is secure. Civilian life is unharmed. They will learn that we do not destroy worlds for punishment. We remove threats." Across the galaxy, intelligence networks recorded the surrender. The news spread quickly to distant systems. Humanity had dismantled the capital defenses of the most powerful military alliance in known space. They had done so with precision, restraint, and overwhelming force. The Alliance High Council had been broken. The remaining fleets scattered, their power shattered. The capital system itself had survived. No cities had burned. No civilians were lost. Only military strength had been removed. For humanity, the lesson was clear. Vengeance had been measured. Power had been displayed. Survival ensured. For the Alliance, the lesson was harsher. Pride could not protect worlds. Arrogance could not stop a species that learned from loss, endured beyond destruction, and struck with calculated perfection. And in the silence of the capital system, the galaxy began to understand something fundamental. Humanity did not fight for conquest. Humanity fought to ensure that no haven would ever burn again. The reckoning. The Alliance High Council had fallen silent. For decades, they had ruled with strength and fear. Planets followed their commands. Trade flowed through their systems. Military might kept entire civilizations in line. They had believed themselves untouchable. Now they were broken. Human dreadnoughts still held the outer edges of the capital system. Ships rotated positions, shields interlocked across hundreds of thousands of hulls. The fleet waited, calm and silent, as if giving the Alliance time to reflect. Inside the council chamber, leaders argued in whispers. Some suggested negotiating terms to minimize further losses. Others demanded hiding or fleeing to distant systems. A few dared to suggest rebellion, but the memory of Core Station 3 and the siege of the capital was fresh. Every military option had already failed. A senior council member finally spoke aloud, voice trembling. "We cannot fight them. Our fleets are destroyed. Our stations are disabled. Their numbers, we cannot match them." Another added, "We cannot even defend ourselves. We have no leverage." For the first time in history, the council realized that their power had vanished, not through diplomacy, but by force and calculation. On the human flagship, Admiral James observed the transmissions. His officers reported Alliance compliance with human demands. Military command centers were being secured. Remaining warship production lines were disabled or dismantled. James did not celebrate. He watched carefully. Humanity's mission was not revenge. It was survival. He understood the danger of leaving any threat intact. "Status report," he said to his tactical officer. "All military nodes in the system secured. Civilian populations unaffected. Remaining fleet assets under supervision," the officer replied. James nodded.
Good.
"Begin inspection of strategic networks. Ensure nothing remains that could rebuild the war machine." Across the capital system, human boarding drones moved with precision. Warships were examined. Weapon caches removed. Command centers deactivated. Systems were neutralized efficiently. Civilian industries continued operating. The Alliance realized the full scale of the human operation. This was not punishment. This was methodical dismantling. Pride, arrogance, and fear had led them to the edge of annihilation. Now their ability to threaten humanity was gone. Outside, the Dreadnoughts formed a protective ring around the capital planet. Every ship remained in position, ready to act, but no fire was aimed at cities or civilians. Their presence was a reminder. Any further attempt at aggression would be met with overwhelming force. Within hours, the remaining Alliance fleets in distant systems began sending surrender signals. Intelligence channels recorded transmissions from minor worlds pleading for protection. The human fleet did not chase or destroy them. They only ensured compliance and safety. Inside the human command network, Admiral James reviewed all data. Every potential threat neutralized. Civilian infrastructure preserved. Strategic control secured.
"This is complete," he said.
An officer asked, "Sir, what comes next? Do we withdraw?" James shook his head.
"No, not yet.
We wait. We maintain presence until all Alliance military leadership is accounted for. They must understand the consequences of reckless action. Only then can we leave." The message was clear across the capital system. Humans did not destroy for revenge. Humans dismantled power to prevent future loss. They had struck hard and precise, showing what happened when one of their colonies was burned without warning. Alliance citizens began whispering across networks, spreading the truth of what had occurred. Humanity did not act in anger. Humanity acted in protection. And now, the Alliance had no ability to threaten them. For humanity, the operation achieved more than military victory. It set a precedent. Other species in the galaxy began taking note. A species capable of building 500,000 dreadnoughts, acting with discipline and calculation, could no longer be ignored. In quiet moments, Admiral James walked the command deck of his flagship. Crew members moved efficiently, attending to minor maintenance and system checks. He looked out at the thousands of dreadnoughts in formation, silent in the darkness. "They thought we would strike in rage," he said softly to an officer nearby. "They thought losing Haven would make us weak." "They misjudged us," the officer replied. James nodded. "We did not fight for hate. We did not fight for revenge. We fought to ensure Haven was never forgotten. And now, the galaxy will remember." The human fleet maintained its position around the capital system for weeks. Alliance leadership, stripped of military power, complied fully. Strategic systems were neutralized. War plans destroyed. Command hierarchies dismantled. Yet civilian life continued uninterrupted. Humanity had sent a clear message: attack without warning, and the consequences are absolute. And in the vast silence of space, one truth became evident to all who observed: humanity would never again allow itself to be caught unprepared. The reckoning was complete. The Alliance learned that survival was more powerful than pride, precision stronger than chaos, and humanity stronger than anyone had ever imagined. Humanity's lesson. The galaxy had changed. Silence settled across the Alliance capital system. Where warships had once lined the orbital belts, only human dreadnoughts remained, steady and imposing. Their engines glowed faintly, blue against the black void, a silent reminder that humanity's presence could not be ignored. Inside the High Council chamber, the Alliance leaders sat in stunned quiet. Their fleets were gone, their defenses shattered, their military power neutralized. And yet, their worlds were intact. Civilian lives were untouched. Cities, farms, and factories continued to function. Humanity had not burned, bombed, or ransacked. They had only removed the ability to threaten. Admiral James stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching reports flow in. Every system under human oversight showed compliance. Military installations had been disabled. Strategic fleets were dismantled or under observation. Civilian populations were safe. He turned to his officer. "Do you understand why we did this?" The officer nodded. "To prevent another Haven." James's eyes swept across the fleet formation visible on the main screens. Hundreds of thousands of dreadnoughts floated in perfect alignment, a force of unimaginable scale.
Exactly.
Not vengeance. Not anger. Lesson.
Strength.
Restraint. Across the galaxy, intelligence networks reported the results. Other species whispered about humanity. They spoke of a civilization that had been attacked without warning, suffered catastrophic loss, and yet returned stronger than ever. They had built 500,000 dreadnoughts and used them with surgical precision. They had dismantled the most powerful Alliance military without harming civilians. The message was unmistakable. Humanity did not forget. Humanity did not forgive lightly. Humanity acted with purpose. On Earth, people watched the final reports. Children who had been too young to remember Haven now learned its history. Teachers spoke quietly of loss, resilience, and strategy. Engineers, pilots, and crew who had built the fleet were celebrated not for destruction but for preservation of humanity itself. Even in distant colonies, people looked up at the stars and felt the presence of the human fleet. It was a promise. No human world would ever burn unchallenged again. In the Alliance capital, discussions turned from shock to survival. Leaders debated how to rebuild their systems under human supervision. They realized the galaxy had changed. Their arrogance had led to their collapse. Their pride had cost them everything. A council member whispered to another, "They could have destroyed us completely. They chose not to." "Why?" "Because they are human," the other replied. "They do not destroy without purpose." Weeks passed. Human fleets remained in orbit, maintaining security, overseeing dismantling operations, and ensuring no rogue fleets attempted resistance. Civilian trade was allowed. Relief supplies were coordinated. The human presence was firm, yet measured. Admiral James continued his oversight. His decisions remained guided by one principle: humanity would not repeat the mistakes that had cost Haven. Every action was deliberate, every decision calculated. Finally, the fleet began gradual withdrawal from the capital system, maintaining surveillance but freeing space for normal activity. Humanity had demonstrated its strength, delivered its lesson, and ensured the Alliance could never threaten them again. In distant systems, other species observed quietly. They began reconsidering their relations with humanity. Some sought diplomacy. Others reinforced their borders. Every civilization now understood the cost of underestimating a species that could endure destruction, learn, and rise stronger. Back on Earth, Admiral James addressed the United Earth Council.
His voice was calm.
Haven was lost, but humanity survived. We built, we trained, we prepared. And we acted with precision. The lesson is clear. A species that defends itself does not need to destroy the innocent to secure its future. He paused. Let the galaxy remember this day. Let it remember that humanity does not threaten lightly, but it does not forgive recklessly. The council nodded in solemn agreement. Across human space, people continued their work, repairing, rebuilding, and preparing for the future. The fleet returned to its stations, ready but not aggressive. The Dreadnoughts, still 500,000 strong, were a living testament to human resilience and determination. Haven was gone, but humanity had not been defeated. It had learned. It had grown. It had sent a message that echoed through the stars. Attack a human world, and humanity will respond not with chaos, not with anger, but with absolute, calculated power. And the galaxy would never forget. The stars were quiet again, but humanity's presence was undeniable. Their lesson had been delivered. Their vengeance was measured. Their survival was ensured. The humans had risen from the ashes of Haven. And now they would never be caught unprepared again. The galaxy knew it. The Alliance knew it. Humanity knew it. And that knowledge alone changed everything.